My name is Corina Down. I'm a Dutch-born artist, writer, and puppet maker. I live in Ireland. Thank you for this opportunity to share my now 23-year-long creative journey while living with the chronic illness, myalgic encephalomyelitis, ME in short. The main emphasis in this lecture is the role of puppetry during this time. Please know that I lack the energy and ability to speak clearly for any length of time, so the voice recordings were created over a couple of weeks. Some parts are from my previous recordings and other parts edited in later, hence the changes in sound quality and voice clarity throughout this video presentation. The transcript of the lecture will be supplied by your course leader. I hope you enjoy your lecture, and thank you very much for Emma Fisher for helping me edit this video, and for Carrie Hassel to translate it into Spanish. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. A little bit about my background, about puppetry, me, and ME. Although trained as a nurse and social care worker in my native Netherlands, it was a move to Ireland in 1989 which led me to become a full-time working artist. My work centered around one-off puppet and artist dolls under the name of Fantasy Folk. In 1998, I taught marionette puppet making in a group home for teenagers. One young man of about 13 sculpted a funny clown's head. However, when it came to making the hands, they were created as fists. I wonder if they expressed his true emotions, perhaps of anger or fear. This experience became the pivotal moment where I realized the power of art. The deepest fears, joys, wishes, and challenges appear from our hearts, our minds, through our hands, and into our work. Unfortunately, I did not get to finish the project with the young people, as I became very ill very quickly with the neurological illness myalgic encephalomyelitis, in short, ME, not to be confused with chronic fatigue syndrome. In a very short time, I lost the ability to look after myself, to walk properly, to sit up and talk, to remember, to read, to write, to prepare my food, or even do such simple tasks as open a tube of toothpaste. In terms of my work, I lost all finer skills to hold my tools and to manipulate the clay. The total lack of energy and being in constant pain made creating my dolls and puppets impossible. However, I realized soon that my creative mind was not going to stop. It challenged me to find new ways to create and explore my totally altered existence. As a result, my creative output changed dramatically, both in substance and intensity. Initially, there were just quick drawings, mainly of eggs, later of birds. Over the following years, I slowly regained the ability to sculpt again. I learned a great deal about life with illness and life in general through my creativity. As I won't have time to go through these works, I'll invite you to explore my website, corinadown.com, for a selection of the created works, published books, as well as lecture transcripts and videos of puppetry and disability talks. All my work explores the reality of illness, the good, the bad, and the beautiful, as well as the improvements and subsequent decline again over the past 2 decades. One of the drawings in the early years of illness was that of a marionette puppet with a hand holding the cross. These words were scribbled over the image. A puppet, not a great drawing, but the puppet is me with ME. I have little or no control over my body. Who is the hand who keeps me upright, make me walk,
make me move gracefully or let me stumble at times, makes me stand my full length or let me buckle at my knees, makes my arms move or leave them hang like useless objects. Who is the hand that has control? What is the hand that holds the cross and moves my strings at its will? Can I become the hand over me, have control over me? Hand, whatever you do, don't drop me altogether. Hold on, but stop playing tricks. At the time, I had no idea how much this one image subconsciously influenced my puppetry-related work more than a decade later. During 2013, about 15 years after becoming ill, I became an active member of the Irish Wheelchair Association, an organisation in Ireland for people with physical disabilities, not just those using a wheelchair. My main reason was that I had hoped I would get practical help with making my work. Experiencing yet again a decline in my health, I could no longer knead or roll the clay to make my sculptures and puppets. However, the then center coordinator asked if I could facilitate a puppet making project with my fellow members. We applied and received funding from CREATE, Artists in the Community scheme, funded by the Arts Council of Ireland. We started our project in the summer of 2014. Our group consists of 12 people with a variety of disabilities: acquired brain injury, multiple sclerosis, polio, congenital birth defects, and ME, ages 27 to 72. Over the course of 8 months, we created 9 marionette puppets, a large disability box, and a large hand to help us out of the box. I hadn't realized at the time that this might be the hand in my drawing at the start of the illness. My goal was to make this project person-centered by giving everybody a role in the project, making the puppets, note-taking, story development, decorating the large box, photography, book design, press coverage, and talking at the public lunch. All aspects were of equal importance. It proved to be of immense benefit that I knew the participants in advance of starting the project. I drew on my personal experiences of adapting working methods. For one young woman who has no lower arms but is able to hold a pen between her elbows, I adapted the sculpting tool and brush by adding a layer of Milliput epoxy putty. I molded the putty until the tools fitted well within her elbows. By adding a layer of wet DAS clay to her wheelchair tray, we were able to put the to-be sculpted head base into this wet clay. This allowed her to do a lot of the sculpting herself. Although we all had staff to support us, it was extremely important to me that the puppets were made mainly by the participants, as the character of the puppet has so much of the maker in them. None of the puppets depicted the maker's disabilities. Neither did mine. I was aware of the unease of one member who has an acquired brain injury to work in a large group. I invited him to make the large papier-mâché hand. Myself or a staff member worked one-to-one with him. It was so encouraging to see his pride. He was totally engaged in the process and related the work to his previous profession as a chef. Encouraged by the motto that there is always a way to do the work, one man with MS, who has very little strength left in his hands, asked for sandpaper to be taped to the table. He sanded the clay shoes of his puppet by rubbing them over the sandpaper, holding it with both hands. A young man realized that if he did not close the scissors fully, he was able to cut the clothing for his puppet by himself. It was a total revelation to him. During this extended project, I witnessed a shift in focus from disability to ability. We all explored how disabilities challenged us, but over time found alternative ways to create our puppets. Busy with our hands, there was a great sense of ease to talk about our lives, our challenges and hopes. It was a safe place. We filmed Life Outside the Box 2016 in our local shopping center. We chose this public place on purpose, seeking interaction with the public. Puppets make for easy conversation. People engage with us, which is a shift from being ignored or a mental and physical ability being dismissed, as is more common experience. Our project certainly caught the public's eye. There were full spread articles in the local newspapers, and we had 2 well-attended lunches at libraries. I was interviewed on radio on several occasions. Our video has been shown at disability film festivals in Canada and the UK, and in our local cinema. Every 3 months, an adapted 1-minute version is screened on Irish national television. Myself and another member of the group were filmed in my house for a segment on Nationwide 2018 for national TV. We also hosted an exhibition we called Disability, This Ability, with our puppets and other creative work by the group and individuals. On a personal note, I am proud that as a person with a disability, I was able to facilitate a project for and with other people with disabilities. There were so many astonishing and beautiful moments where beliefs of inability were overcome and became sources of inspiration, where characters appeared from under our hands, seemingly with fierce determination to be born with their own story to tell. I believed and still believe that Life Outside the Box broke many boundaries. For me, it represents pride, inclusiveness, freedom and empowerment, and it had great potential to be used further as communication tool about disability, for example in schools. It saddens me that these educational opportunities noted by the then center coordinator are not followed up by the person now in charge. This quote by Andrea Lloyd, the center coordinator at the time of the project. Whilst the project was about puppets coming out of their box, in reality it was the service users that also came out of their box, to realize that they could do more than they thought they were capable of. It was the most inclusive project that we ever did.
Disability.
Ability.
Capacity of power.
Cleverness.
Talent.
Mental power.
Dis, indicating removal of a thing or quality.
Really?
We might be labelled.
Disabled.
Physically challenged.
Handicapped.
Crippled.
Differently abled.
Invalid.
Special needs.
Step out of the box and you are free.
Oh God!
the Irish Wheelchair Association's Dungarvan Resource Centre worked for 6 months on a series of puppets, starting with a stick and a strip of cotton to make the bases for the heads. Over the following 6 months, the puppets took on their ultimate personalities.
Disability.
Disability. Although I stopped attending the IWA Outreach Centre in 2016, life outside the box lived on. Emma Fisher and Laura Purcell Gaze referred to it in their research paper, Puppetry as Reinforcement or Rupture of Cultural Perception of the Disabled Body. This led to the invitation by Emma to give a talk at the Broken Puppet Symposium in 2017 during Cork Puppet Festival. I suddenly found myself in a beautiful and astonishing world I did not know that I was part of. I was made more aware of how puppetry can bring awareness to living with illness or disability. I have since researched this topic and have been fortunate to be invited to give talks worldwide about my experiences. I created some further puppets exploring my own reality of ill health and disability. The main puppets created were the Reflection Girls marionettes and the wheelchair top puppet, Pauline. The Reflection Girls are two puppets depicting the experience of walking into a dance studio using my walking sticks. When brave enough, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. What do I truly see? How does it feel? Do my thoughts change when I move the sticks behind my back? Are what I see and what I think the same?
I was invited to visit a dance studio. uncomfortable with my reflection. I observed life outside the window. Outside of myself. Meditation. And writing. Help to build up the courage. And explore my reflection. This pilot was filmed at Wansford Quay Gallery in Cork, with support of Dominic Fee, Lorraine Shanahan and Jackie O'Flynn.
The next personal challenge came when I lost the strength to hold the cross of my marionettes. I explored alternative designs. Pauline is the result. I needed a puppet which I could animate from my wheelchair. Throughout this process, I was very aware of my physical boundaries and at the same time valued my abilities. The often overlooked therapeutic benefit of creating new work is that the brain is fully engaged. Waking up in the morning with the thought, how could I make the puppet's head move? Takes the focus away from a painful and uncooperative body. Instead, the focus is on something fun and productive. The therapeutic value is also engaging with the finished puppet and watch them come to life. Pauline certainly has taken on a personality of her own and in a way embodies my story.
Pauline is a puppet designed by Karina Dunn to adapt puppetry to the physical challenges of life with chronic illness, disability, ME. The controls need to be accessible. Puppet needs to be able to sit independently. With ease, arm control. And walk by holding her from the back. After many, many months, Pauline came into being. Her first journey was to Dalston Bera Care Centre, where Cecile gave Pauline her first breath on the 1st of February. And where connections between puppetry and meditation were made. We said our forever goodbyes not long after, as Cecile took her last breath a month later. Back home, there were new people to meet. We rested for 5 weeks, as well as made many preparations for our travels to the UK, where we gave talks at the Nottingham Puppet Festival. We met many puppets. and puppet makers. After a week, we took a train to Bristol. Where Pauline had to mind Karina with great care and ate the ear off the Easter bunny. During the following 3 weeks, we met puppets and makers at Puppet Place and at Noisy Oysters. We finished our travels at the Broken Puppet Symposium in Bath, where Karina was one of the keynote speakers, and where we met with students from Bath Spa University. It has taken almost 3 months to recover from our adventures. Through silence, meditation, and watching nature unfold, we were finally ready to look back. At the amazing journey we've made. The beautiful people we met along the way. And others we hope to meet in the future.
One of the puppets I started after Pauline, but did not manage to finish, was a very small puppet with the name Miracle Miracle. I wanted to depict the experience that there are many wheelchair users like myself who still have the ability to walk a very short distance or even a few steps. When I step out of my wheelchair in public, it never fails to create a reaction, not always positive, sometimes funny. Often though, people are utterly shocked and dismayed. If one uses a wheelchair, one should not walk. My creative aim was to have an old lady covered in a blanket in her wheelchair. Typical disabled imagery. The poor woman. She then throws her blanket off, shows her outrageously colorful clothing, stands up and skates away on her roller skates, using her walking sticks to support her. This imagery had great potential to project and distort the social perception of disability. It could have been further enhanced perhaps by a gay punk person of color as carer pushing the chair. However, as the illness continued to challenge me and my creative ability with rapid decline, I am no longer able to sculpt my puppets. To explore a way forward, I asked Emma Fisher to mentor me in 2019 to an Arts and Disability Award. Working on what became the Invisible Octopus project,
inexplicably forced me to examine and establish the truth about what is my normal. It was a hugely confrontational and yet beautiful time. I learned a great deal more than the aim of the mentoring to write a script with my puppets in the leading role. During our first face-to-face meeting, the word shadow triggered a memory of a book I had been working on years ago, a fictional story about my great-grandmother's spirit, whose presence I felt on my body like a tentacle of an octopus. I lived in her shadow, the shadow of an invisible octopus. This sensation is relatable to the experience of ME, the hard to describe, changeable neuropathic pain, the feeling of something invading my body, the many cognitive problems, and not being in control of my movement, of my life. As if an invisible hand holding the cross of a marionette is animating the strings attached to my body. During the process of thinking, writing, and discussing my intended film, the octopus became this hand. I designed Octopus as a glove puppet with the idea that I would be able to animate it myself. I had the support of a personal assistant to cut the fabric for the octopus. I found the perfect material given to me by my mother over 20 years ago. It had turquoise for the top and a mix of beige for the bottom parts. The suction pads on the tentacles are from my non-slip socks. The eyes I found in a box of old puppet eyes. I found it of great significance that all the props were created, including the hospital bed, recliner and wheelchair, were made from found objects in my studio. All had a memory attached. Use everything. Use everything wisely. Everything has significance. Quote by Ben Okri. The machine sewing was done by my PA. I did the hand sewing while in my recliner. It was good to have discovered a new way to create. Octopus was initially a prop, but it took on its own life and perhaps became the story. Aside from making the props and developing the script and poem, in my own time I created little film abstracts of my puppets in the garden with the visiting birds. I'd lie on my bench under my beloved tree and developing the script accordingly. I'd leave the phone camera run for an hour or so to get that one special moment of birds and puppets together. It was tranquil. I loved it. Also, 2 very short abstracts of the script were filmed. On the first occasion, my assistant pinned Octopus on my shoulder. Although I was fully aware that it was pinned to my clothes and not to me, it encroached on me. I felt utterly restricted in my movement. While filming a close-up, another assistant animated Octopus slowly creeping over my shoulder. Powerful imagery, but on an emotional level, it makes for very uncomfortable viewing. The second time we filmed, Octopus invaded the tranquility of one of the girl puppets in the garden. Following is a short abstract of some of the clips we created.
Working on the props was manageable to a degree, as I could stop after 10 or 20 minutes work, and I had full support from my PA. Filming, however, was a lot more energy consuming than I had anticipated. Being part of the filming 2 very short clips brought on relapses and put me in bed for weeks. I had to rethink the outcome of the project. After a lot of deliberation, I had to concede that making the film is actually beyond my ability. What I could do was develop the poem, perhaps to publish in a little book. During the last mentoring day in October 2019, Emma introduced me to the use of an overhead projector. She attached the small screen to the bed end of my profiling bed, a hospital-type bed, and placed the projector on a bed tray standing over my legs. Totally wedged in, I was breathing life into a whole new world, playing with light and shadows, movement and stillness. I experienced the beauty of creating a mini world with herbs from my garden, and marveled at the possibility to change the color of light on the screen through the movement of hands under the source of light. While gently moving a paper puppet in a wheelchair over the grass I made from fennel leaves, we had a shadow of octopus appearing in this tranquil scene. As it slowly encroached over the puppet, it pushed her up and about, lifting her up in the air and dropping her, wheelchair and all, changing tranquility into chaos, just like the illness does. As I realized how shadow puppetry could bring me a renewed creative freedom, I sourced my own overhead projector. It was set up in such a way that I could access it without the need of support. It was a hugely liberating feeling, as with almost all my creative work, including the making of the glove puppet and the trials of recording of the proposed short film, I needed a lot of practical support. With shadow puppetry, I realized that I was able to cut small paper puppets, birds and other images while lying in my recliner or in bed. Using the overhead projector with each tiny movement of my puppet, I was able to create instant stories. I may be trapped in my body, but on the screen I can fly with the birds. I can express what it feels like to be knocked out of my wheelchair by an invisible octopus. I can deal with the frustration of being on the receiving end of a failing healthcare system. I can share the feeling of being housebound in pain, as well as the poignancy of depicting resting in the healing energy of my garden. The starkness of the black and white imagery leaves nothing to the imagination. This is it. This is my reality. No frills, nothing dressed up to make it look sweet or beautiful. The power of possibility is immense. I realized that puppetry forced me to look deep into my reality. Poetry defined the experience. The Invisible Octopus poem was edited with the help of poet Dolores Ronaine. I had decided on 12 stanzas of 4 lines each. My intended animation of the poem was much more complicated than I anticipated. It would take me a year at least, as I can only work for a short spell of time and didn't really have the necessary knowledge and technology. But one day, I put a voice recording of reading the poem and 12 photographs of shadow puppetry images I had chosen for an exhibition together, and suddenly I had a version of my animated poem. It took all of 10 minutes to create this piece of work, which I feel encompasses my 22-year-long journey into 2.2 minutes. I felt at the time that this work was the last of my creative explorations of life with ME.
The responses to this video have been beyond my wildest dreams. It has been shown at film, puppetry, as well as poetry festival. The poem will be published in a Dutch anthology. Reading the reactions to my work, I realized that many of us have an octopus in our lives. Next, I will show you the short video poem of Invisible Octopus with the 12 images which were chosen to be exhibited last year at an exhibition in Formoy, County Cork. Invisible Octopus by Karina Down. The reality of life with the unpronounceable illness myalgic encephalomyelitis is hidden and fragile. ME as invisible octopus, acting as puppeteer, keeping me upright or making me stumble at will, inflicting pain, challenging my brain, its crushing weight taking my breath away. Rosy cheeks, looking well, they say. Summer is coming. Happy thoughts will cure you. I live in a disbelieving world, my reality trivialized, dismissed. My full-time carers witness octopus's destruction. For others, I simply disappear into the shadows. I'm just one in this worldwide community of hermits, where freedom of movement is no longer a right. Transcending gravity, I fly among the birds, their beauty and harmony, uplifting and strengthening. After a short flight, octopus attacks, pinning me down, immobilized. Each moment is a death. Breathe. Each moment is a living. Finding peace in my solitude, I observe the dance of the trees. There's movement in stillness. My creative mind, the visible thread throughout this 22-year-long story, transforming pain into poetry. Over the past 2 years, I had to accept that octopus, my illness, has greater power over my life than I ever wished to imagine. December last, I considered that I needed more care. I was no longer possible and safe to live independently at home, even with 7-day care. At the end of April, I moved into a nursing home. It broke my heart, and yet it is right. So far, my creativity has been dormant, if one excludes making my room my home. The occasional creative spark happens, but I lack the needed energy. But maybe I'm also afraid to let the power of my creative mind help me deal with the immense changes I'm dealing with. I'm becoming more ill. I'm losing so many more abilities, like the simple things of chewing food or sitting up for any length of time. Even communication can be severely affected of late. I need so much more personal and practical care. I lost my beloved home and garden, and with that, a level of independence. Maybe, just maybe, it is safer to not have to confront all these realities through my art, as yet. For now, I am hiding in plain sight, living in the shadows of octopus. Although I have used many forms of creativity over the past 2 decades, I believe puppetry has been the most confronting and at the same time healing art form of all, with shadow puppetry the most powerful. What I have come to understand is that puppetry can break down personal as well as social barriers. It gives us scope to open up conversation about disability, illness, and experiences of social disadvantage and oppression. However,
As I already mentioned, shortly after creating Invisible Octopus video poem, I felt strongly that this was my last work exploring life with ME. A year later, this still holds true. After my move into full-time care about 4 months ago, and several online lectures this summer, I made a decision that it was time to retire from public engagement regarding my life and work, including to take a step back from advocacy for better care and understanding of this so much contested illness. It has been a long, continuing journey. I truly hope that my work brought an understanding of hidden illnesses to a wider public. As my journey has been well documented over the years, by myself, but also by many others, I hope that my work will live on. To continue to access my creative mind, I have gratefully accepted support from Waterford Healing Arts Trust. On a one-to-one basis, I'm gently exploring ways to create in the comfort of my room at Signacare Nursing Home. I'm also doing some personal projects like my scrapbook photo album. My thanks go to the many people and organizations, including but not limited to Emma Fisher, Broken Puppet Symposia, Andrea Malkovich, Core Puppetry Festival, Puppet Place, Arts and Disability Ireland, Create, Arts Council of Ireland, Artlinks, Waterford Arts Office, Arts and Health, Waterford Healing Arts Trust, as well as the general public, friends, family, and the creative community, and my fellow members of ME Advocates Ireland for the immense interest and support in my work. Without you all, this now 23-year-long journey through illness would have been a very lonely experience. Instead, I remain part of the world beyond my walls. I could not have done this without you. My deepest gratitude.